The industry is absolutely divided.
Welcome to Beyond Weddings, the Destination Brief. This podcast is going to explore luxury destination weddings from the viewpoint of the professionals that have real life industry experience, the planners, the venues, the professionals within the industry. Without further ado, I want to introduce today's guest. She's an absolute inspiration in the wedding industry and an inspiration to me, and I think she has so much knowledge to share. Our first guest for this podcast is Alison Hargreaves. She is the founder and director of Guides for Brides and Beyond Weddings. She has over 30 years wedding industry experience, and so it was only right that she was our first guest. So welcome.
Thank you very much for having me on, especially for your first episode.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive right in. So I thought we'd start really simple. What is a destination wedding?
I think it's a really good question to start on because we assume that it means the same to everyone.
Yeah.
So for some people, particularly in the UK, it might mean a wedding in Cornwall, in Devon, in Scotland, Wales, somewhere away from your home county. Mm-hmm. But I would say generally when people are talking about a destination wedding, they're talking about an international wedding. Yeah. It's about getting on a plane and going somewhere else and adding in all that complexity that goes with it.
Yeah, that's quite interesting that you say that. And I think, as you say, but it's also often overlooked, the home destination weddings where you stay in your own country and you just travel a bit further away.
Yeah, but they were so popular straight after COVID. I mean, that's where we really saw, the Lake District, huge weddings in Scotland, even though we didn't have Americans coming over for these lovely grand Scottish castle weddings. We were embracing these weddings. And I think the beautiful weddings we saw, particularly when we were really limited on numbers in Devon and Cornwall, that really boosted the number of people that just wanted that for their wedding. They didn't then want the big wedding because they could see they could have this beautiful small ceremony that perhaps suited them better.
And it feels like destination weddings have slightly blown up since COVID and since everyone can start traveling again. Is that the case, or is that just that's what we're seeing online?
So it's gone in a big cycle. So up until 2001, we reckoned it was about a third of weddings were going overseas. Wow. So huge number were going overseas then. 9/11 put an end to that. And the terrorist attack on the Twin Towers meant that I think a lot of couples not only were anxious about travelling themselves, but they didn't want to inflict the need to travel on their family and friends. But we're now a generation on from that. And while it's not been forgotten, those that are getting married now perhaps weren't so impacted. Yeah. So we've seen that very gradual rise. And it was a gradual rise up until 2000. And several different things happened at that point, not just COVID. Obviously, COVID changed a lot, but also Brexit meant that a lot less people working within the hospitality industry in the UK. So we started to look overseas for that higher quality of hospitality. Not all venues impacted, but we did see a decline in a lot of venues in the level of hospitality we could offer at the prices couples were asking for. So I would say over the last 2 years, we've seen this staggering increase. And the stats now are showing that 40% of couples are considering a destination wedding. Not that many are booking. It's around 20%, much higher proportion for South Asian couples. So 26% of South Asian couples are now going overseas.
And why do you think there's that difference? Why do you think it's more popular for the South Asian couples?
Oh, there's a few things that are throwing into that. So first of all, that hospitality thing. We spoke about looking for those really high levels of hospitality that you're not necessarily getting in the venues that they used to here. But more importantly, after COVID, when it was absolutely fine to be having these slightly smaller South Asian weddings while travel was still a little bit restricted between countries, and wedding size then cut down suddenly to around about 150 guests for a lot of the lot of South Asian weddings in the UK, and couples were loving it.
Yeah.
So this is something that they're not wanting to necessarily force on their family that they're going to restrict the guest list. But as soon as you take the wedding overseas, naturally, with any wedding, the guest list tends to just contract a little. So it now allows South Asian couples that are wanting that slightly more intimate personal experience and having that wedding as perhaps only 150, 200 guests to be able to do it without upsetting anyone. Perfect.
It's the ideal situation.
Absolutely. And, if you can have the wedding you want and give your guests that incredible experience.
And keep your family happy.
Keep your family happy, but also giving guests that amazing experience.
And have you seen a shift in weddings in general, but also in destination weddings, in terms of the importance of guest experience?
Oh, it's probably part of the reason that destination weddings are now flying. So I think experiences are so important now, and to be able to have that destination wedding where it's not just the single day that might be the same as your sister, your cousins, your friends, and it's that cookie cutter wedding, which is really hard to get away from when there's only a certain limit of styles of weddings and so on. Once you throw in that destination element, there are so many more parts to the wedding, from who are you going to be traveling out with? Are you going out before the wedding and staying for a couple of nights? Who are you going to be staying with? What are you going to be doing then? What are you going to be doing for the actual wedding? How are you bringing in the different cultures, the different cuisines, the different traditions from the country that you might be hosting the wedding in? All of these things that feed into that guest experience. And it's really, really hard to have two destination weddings that are even remotely the same. So I'd say it's that entire, it really lends itself to that trend.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense. But I can't help from listening to all of those different considerations but feel slight stress, which surely the couple must feel if they choose. I mean, everyone knows that weddings are challenging enough to plan and put on. Putting it in a different country, that adds a whole new level of complications.
I mean, absolutely insane when you look at it logically, and the stories we hear sometimes from couples that have planned their own wedding and the caterer didn't turn up, the cake didn't, and it would turn out that it was something was lost in translation, or just misunderstanding from contractual sides and so on. Just because a deposit's been paid, it doesn't mean that the vendor's necessarily booked in. So all of these extra complexities really, it does up the risk, but maybe that adds to the experience from the couple's point of view. I think maybe that's part of it, is it adds that extra element of fun and risk and intrigue to the wedding day. Maybe some people enjoy that.
Maybe. I think that's also, though, possibly why planners are becoming quite popular for the destination weddings. They've always been popular, but I think it's probably even more important if you're looking at a destination wedding to be thinking about a planner for all of those things you already mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to the couples that managed to do it without a wedding planner, because I think it's hard enough in your own country, but when you then throw all of the complications in, I think it's particularly things like relationships with other businesses and being able to fall back on a network. If you're planning a wedding in your own hometown or in your own home county, or where your parents live, or where you've got even just distant family or friends, if something goes wrong, if somebody doesn't turn up, there will be someone there that knows who to call and who to speak to. And that's what you're getting in the wedding planner. You've got that access to the network, because they will have that wherever they are operating. They will have access to that network, and they'll know who can help them out. And every wedding, there's something that you need help with. And I think it probably really shows with destination weddings. This is where we're hearing, that the caterer didn't turn up. In the UK, potentially, you could hide that sort of situation, because if the caterer has a problem, they've got somebody else to call on. If the the couple or the family, they get wind of whatever it is that's going, this is why you just, gosh, how would you do it without a planner?
I know.
I would be anxious, particularly, I think, if it's a country where you're not utterly familiar with the culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also with the legal side of things is a massive part, because it's different in every country, as we know, and the planner will know exactly what is needed. They'll be able to advise on whether it's better to do the legal part in the UK, and that's something that I think is invaluable.
Yes, yeah. And also, I mean, you need it right from the start. It's not just checking the contracts and making sure the actual wedding is legal. It's little things like, you book a drone display and you needed permission from, XYZ department for that.
Yeah.
And it's too late on the night, music licenses, all of these sort of things. We found in the UAE where every supplier is needing paperwork to be able to supply, all of these little details. How would somebody know that without a planner?
But I think then it comes back to, how do the planners know it? And it's not as simple as that, but obviously at some point it's going to be their first wedding in the UAE. So how does that work? How does a planner go from being a UK based planner to expanding, or just being a planner from one place but deciding to expand into a new destination? How do they manage that?
I think that's very often a matter of leaning on their professional network.
Yeah.
So buddying up with other planners. A lot of planners come into the industry having worked for another big planner that does destination weddings. Okay. So starting off within another company, learning the ropes before going off on their own and building their own reputation and client base. Others, I would say, quite a lot of the really, really top planners started doing destination weddings through doing other events for clients. So corporate events, milestone birthdays and so on. They weren't planning weddings at all.
Wow.
But when the client was then wanting to plan this really, really important event, their wedding, who are they going to trust with it? The person they've trusted with all of their other events. So that is that perhaps slightly harder situation where you've got a really experienced planner in the UK who's then going to a destination, and there is this preconception from the client that they are going to know exactly what they need to be doing there because they're so professional here. And I think exactly the same applies as you go from country to country. Very few countries operate in the same way, and some cities within the same country operate in a different way from others. So learning about that from professionals. But planners are a really, really close-knit community. Yes, they compete with each other, but in a very, very friendly way, and they will always, always help each other out. So I think useful tips and advice between planners, commonplace, introducing planners to the venues that you trust and so on. And a lot of that is built through these planner familiarisation trips where you really get to know each other very well, understand how each other work and can help each other out.
And so nice to be in such a collaborative industry. But I thought what was really interesting there is a few times you mentioned the word trust. And I think it's a word that we throw around probably quite often. What is the importance of trust when we're talking about not only weddings, but specifically high-end destination weddings?
Wow, it's huge. Yeah, that word's always going to come up, isn't it? Because this is the most important day in your lives, and one that you are going to invest more in this one individual day than any other day.
And you only get one.
You only get one chance.
Yeah.
You have to get it right. And it's in front of all of the people you care about the most. So this is generally, people are trusting their wedding to a wedding planner because they don't trust themselves to be able to deliver it. They don't want that stress themselves. So they're putting that stress on somebody else. So that somebody else really does need to have their trust, and that tends to be through reputation. It's hard. We did speak about those situations where you perhaps have done milestone birthdays and so on and built up the trust that way, but very often it is based entirely on the reputation you've got from other weddings you've delivered. And I mean, that's big, but that's so much easier now with online reputations that really hard for wedding planners. It's a major challenge to make sure they protect that reputation, but it's so important.
And when we're thinking about online, because ironically online and trust probably don't go hand in hand at all, how has social media, influencers, celebrities affected the trends with destination weddings in the last few years?
I think celebrities and influencers have influenced the rise in destination weddings. Inevitably, you're seeing their weddings online, you're assuming that that's what every destination looks like overseas. And it's not. We're forgetting those lovely little weddings on the beach with, small, beautiful small gatherings, just because those aren't the ones splashed all over social media the whole time, or when they are, they don't go viral.
Yeah.
So I would say it is those bigger weddings that have influenced the trend, but that's also really dangerous because it means what you're always seeing is these pictures of these incredible, lavish weddings, where it looks incredible, but you really need that filter on Instagram where you can actually see the price, because otherwise you're going to your planner with these preconceived ideas of what might be possible for your wedding because you've seen it at another wedding.
Yeah, it's that classic Instagram versus reality nightmare that we all find ourselves in.
It's a really, really tough one for weddings because, and I think also as wedding professionals, as planners, florists, cake companies inevitably showcase the work that they're most proud of. And that's very often the work from the weddings where there was perhaps quite a big budget committed to making it as it was.
Yeah. And so with budgets, I think you can never say how much a wedding's going to cost, but let's talk ballpark figures. If we're looking at these ultra high-end destination weddings, the ones you see on social media, ballpark, where are we sitting?
Generally, wedding planner territory for most, what you might start classing as a luxury wedding, tends to start at about £100,000 for a European style wedding.
And is that for 1 day, 2 days?
That's 1 day. That's the essential 1 day, £100,000. South Asian weddings where they're running multiple events over multiple days and perhaps bigger guest lists. Really hard to start with a budget of less than about, I'd say that 100,000 translates as 220 to 300,000 for a South Asian wedding. And the ballpark figure of £1,000 a guest is probably your starting point. And to put that into context, if you look at a lot of 5-star hotels where it is just the food, the drinks package, the venue, ceremony set up, you're looking at, very easily £300 a head just for that per guest.
And that's for London hotels,
London pricing.
Yeah.
So a budget of £1,000 per guest isn't very much when you think of all of the other things that are being added in there. So that tends to be the starting point.
And is that taking into consideration everything from your dress to your hair and makeup, or is that £1,000 per guest for the guest experience? And then you've got your extras still on top of that.
Yeah, I'd say guest experience. Really try and start with that as the budget. And this is where I think it's really hard for wedding planners because couples have seen these amazing weddings on Instagram. And if you're the first wedding planner that the couple has spoken to, you're probably going to become the bad guy, and that's not fair on that planner because they're probably the best match for that couple.
Yeah.
But they're going to be going to the planner with, this is what we are thinking of, this is what we've seen, this is what we'd like. Our budget's £100,000.
Yeah.
Because that's what we've been told. You can, have a planner-led wedding for £100,000. And these are the pictures we'd like. That's going to be the planner that's having to break the bad news. So it's a bit like when you put your house on the market and you don't like the price that the first estate agent gives you. So you go to another estate agent until you find one that says, yes, we'll put it on the market for this. It's exactly the same that happens. Yeah. So they'll then be going to another wedding planner to say, can you do that? I've been told it's going to cost £1,000 a head or whatever it is. Can you do it cheaper? And this starts to get really dangerous because yes, they probably can by cutting corners, but that's not the wedding that you wanted. It's better to have that honest planner from the start, have that trust. There's a reason that you went to that planner first of all. Yeah. And yes, do speak to more than one planner, but then take their advice rather than saying, if that's not your budget, then plan a different wedding. Yeah. Don't try and plan the luxury wedding without having the budget for the planner to deliver it. Yeah. And that's not saying, so, we talk about these ballpark figures quite a lot, and a lot of planners have 100,000 as their cutoff. that doesn't mean there aren't planners that won't plan for below 100,000. They absolutely will. And I think we'll see a really big rise in this, particularly for domestic weddings. Much harder for international. There's much higher cost involved. But those below £100,000 budgets for professional couples who want somebody to do, the wedding planning so they can carry on with what they do well at work, and let somebody else plan the wedding for them. Absolutely, there's a big market for that as well.
Yeah, and actually, I feel that in some cases, as long as you're in the budget to be having a wedding planner, they can actually help you save money in places by setting your expectations early, helping you make a plan, and making sure that you don't blow your whole budget on flowers in the first month of planning.
Yeah, and there's two sort of categories of couples, three categories of couples that really need a planner. And the first, professionals who, not everyone wants to plan a wedding. And some people just want to do the fun part of planning the wedding and leave somebody else to sort out all of the logistics and sort the contracts and so on. And that is a really, really, really growing market. Yeah. More and more couples are going for that. And that's how it works in the States and many other countries where it is absolutely commonplace for everyone to have a planner. But then when you step into the luxury territory, which very often is in the UK, where we start seeing more planners, there's the two different categories. Those that need a planner because they have a very big, high budget, really complex wedding. And my goodness, you would not even think of doing that without a planner. And most of the venues wouldn't want to take your booking anyway without a planner involved. But you also have couples where this is a really, really important event to them. They've been saving for a long time. Perhaps their family have been saving. They really are investing in this day, and they want to get the best value for money on their day. So not making mistakes is really important on that, using their buying power very carefully. And wedding planners may be able to access better prices for certain things, but that's perhaps not the be all and end all. It's more about making the right decisions so that the budget stretches further.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of a dirty word sometimes when we're talking about wedding planners, and that is commission. What are your thoughts on that? How does it generally work? Should it be a dirty word?
No, it shouldn't be a dirty word. It should be out there. Yeah. So I'm really glad you asked the question, because I think this is something we do need to talk about, because with transparency, you then get trust. Yeah. And I think this is really, the industry is absolutely divided. And I love it when this topic comes up at conferences and so on. It's lovely. It's really interesting to see how passionately people defend the way they work. And I don't think there is a right and wrong way of doing it, but I think what is important is to be transparent with your couples. And couples are savvy. They understand that you need to earn a living. We've done the calculation before now on, wedding planners that have actually sat down and gone, how many hours do you spend on this wedding? Most wedding planners are working way, way, way below minimum wage in order to deliver the weddings that they deliver. So if you are communicating with your couple that either I charge a fixed fee because I want you to have complete control and I want you to know that all of the decisions are made on this basis and this basis, but my fixed fee does then need to cover the cost of planning your wedding, and therefore this is the fee, that's great. Equally, if you're saying to the couple, I want to keep the costs of your wedding planning as low as possible for you. Yeah. Certain suppliers offer a commission. And if I take that commission, it can help support the payment that you're paying. Therefore, I can keep that payment lower. Yeah. I think the thing that, there's no think about it, I know the thing that people are very uncomfortable with in the industry is where you're doing a mix of the two. Yeah. So you are charging a very low fixed fee and presenting it as a fixed fee. Okay. But then taking a commission. And what that is... And
you did that.
And it does. It feels under the table. Yeah. And it's not because every venue, destination weddings in the UK, commission doesn't tend to be paid. So UK planners tend to be much, much firmer on No, commission is, I wouldn't take commission if somebody offered it. But that's because it almost starts feeling like a bribe in the UK because it is so uncommon. But anywhere else, when you have the conversation, when we're talking to venues in most other countries, they will say straight away, this is what we pay as a commission. And it works just like with a travel agent or anyone else. You are the introducer. So that it's just about if we can have that transparency, if planners can be honest and not use it as a way of undercutting their competitors, I think everyone would then be really comfortable with the conversation. There is the other little thing to just throw in there that I think does come up occasionally, and that's marking up. So with any other industry, so drinks in a reception venue, they buy them in at this price. They put a 40% markup on it. It goes out at that price.
And they've not done anything to that bottle in that meantime.
No, because they're also charging for the hire of glassware and the servers and so on. So when wedding planners do the same, that's absolutely frowned upon. And I think the reason for that is a really, really good reason. And that's because very often they're working with businesses who really, really care about their reputation and have worked very, very hard to keep their prices as fair and as competitive as possible. So imagine if you are a cake company and you usually charge £1,000 for this cake, and the cake and the planner has marked it up to make a profit on it. That same 40%, it's then £1,400 for the couple. Not only does it not feel great if that couple speak to somebody else who's had a similar cake at a different price, but also the expectations the couple will have of that cake company then go much, much higher. They're then 40% higher, because there's that 40% extra charge on it.
Yeah, of course. I didn't even think of it that way. That's such a valid point.
And when reputation is so important, the risk that, if the couple were to say, yes, this was fantastic, but it was a little bit expensive. It's not the supplier that was getting the benefit of that, it's the planner. So I would say that's the one thing that, interestingly, as you say, completely normal in so many other industries.
But we just don't talk about
it. It doesn't, but the marking up, we don't talk about the commission enough, and the marking up perhaps is a bit of a tricky one that definitely would need to be transparency if that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, I'd love to talk to you a bit about sustainability, because you're a brilliant advocate for sustainability within the industry. However, we are talking about luxury destination weddings, so a little bit of a mismatch there. Is sustainability possible within this market? Is it something we're moving towards? How is it working?
It is such a swear word, isn't it? It is such a swear word with luxury weddings. And you can really understand why, because it feels so unattainable. But I think where we're going to with sustainability in weddings is trying to help couples and planners and venues and suppliers make the wedding a little bit more sustainable than it might have been if you hadn't been thoughtful, mindful about what you're doing. So having that awareness and starting to look for the little things that you can do differently that will not compromise the wedding, but make you feel more comfortable about what you're doing and the impact that you're having. And I think what we are challenged with here is that it is, it's the most important day in your life. You want it to be exactly as you imagined. You don't want somebody to come along and say, I'm sorry, you can't have any flowers in your bouquet. Here's a bunch of sticks. That's not going to happen. And with destination weddings, even more so, people are traveling, that carbon footprint from the travel is really, really significant. But gently encouraging people to better choices, away from beef, for example, because of the impact on methane, towards perhaps travelling in economy on flights, and then offering a massage with a local massage therapist, support the local the local industries once they've arrived in the destination. Those little things. And this is going to be driven not necessarily just by couples that have their own personal preference to have a more sustainable wedding, but I think also from societal pressure. So if you think it's not always the couple that are planning the wedding that are paying for the wedding, it's very often the parents of the bride or the groom. If you have a CEO of some multinational company that have very, very high sustainability credentials, and it gets out that this was the picture of the son's wedding, this was the daughter surrounded with, XYZ that was phenomenally unsustainable. So we're starting to see real PR effort going into weddings to understand what could be done that is going to be less impactful on the environment in particular. Unfortunately, I think it may well lead to a little bit of weddings that appear to be more sustainable than they are. But that's a step in the right direction. At least we're not then setting the standard as this is what we want. We want this huge amount of waste and we want to, fill stadiums with flowers out of season. So, I think it's starting to set the tone.
That's really good. Talking about setting the tone, where do you see destination weddings going in the next 5, 10, 30 years, for example?
I think just like with travel, more and more experiential. So people are going to be going away from the destinations that they've always been to. I'm really hoping it might lead to a few more weddings venturing further away from Lake Como, for example. I mean, Lake Como, absolutely love it. Beautiful place to get married. But there's a lot of weddings there, and there's a lot of equally beautiful destinations where you'll get a more unique experience and perhaps a little bit more culture, because it's become almost Americanized, anglicized, and you walk into a venue and you can already picture the Instagram image of 10 other weddings that have taken place in that venue. So hard for the planner as well when they're faced with that, because they have to get that image out of their head and recreate something completely new. So I think we will see more couples wanting to go to really interesting places. So we're going to see some old classics coming back. So Bahrain, I'm quite excited about. Sri Lanka, I was in Sri Lanka last month, and it's actually really, really growing in popularity with Indian couples coming from India. And I think we're going to see more South Asian couples going there, and, beautiful island. It's actually good, really good on a lot of its sustainable there. And a really interesting experience for guests as well. So they're not just going into a venue, spending 48 hours and shipping back home. They'll actually want to stay and explore the destination. So I hope that's where we see it, that sort of longer travel connected to destination weddings. I'd love to see that in the future.
That'd be quite exciting.
Absolutely. And a more positive impact if you're going to be traveling for a wedding. Make it count, make it really special. Encourage your guests to spend time there yourself, get to love it, love the culture, because that's what a destination's all about.
And I'm going to finish with 3 quickfire questions. So, firstly, what is one thing that you have prioritised for a destination wedding?
Local food. I think embracing the culture in the food would probably be the best way to I would say local food.
Brilliant. Number 2, what really makes a difference with destination weddings?
Wow. I don't think it's a thing. I think it's like with any wedding, time. So having the time in the destination, but also time on the wedding day built in. It's really difficult to do with a wedding, but just time together, time with your guests, so that you don't feel you've spent all day rushing around and not had a chance to spend quality time. So time, it's not a thing. It's a
And finally, what is your favourite destination right now for a high-end wedding?
It's really hard to beat Italy. There are some beautiful places in Italy, but there are so many other places. So I would say it tends to be the last place I visited. So it changes. And I think that's the beauty of destination weddings, isn't it? There are so many incredible places that you can go. There really is something for everyone. So I fall in love with every country I go to. So I'm not the best person to ask, but I think any couple would probably say the same. Wherever it is they've got married, they've loved it.
Brilliant. Well, on that note, thank you very much for joining us on episode 1 of Beyond Weddings, the Destination Brief. Thank you. And I'm really excited to carry on this series, chatting to some of these incredible planners, professionals from different destinations around the world to really get the behind the scenes and the insights into luxury destination weddings. So see you on the next one. And if you want any more information, go and visit www.beyondweddings.com.